waging this war in Afghanistan against Taliban remnants and al-Qaeda killers. We're pursuing long-term victory in this war by promoting democracy in the Middle East so that the nations of that region no longer breed hatred and terror.
Get off the air. Go ahead and get through.
And we are cleared to cross.
Our mission in Afghanistan was never supposed to have been nation building. Our only vital national interest in Afghanistan remains today what it has always been: preventing a terrorist attack on America's homeland.
We're waging this war in Afghanistan against Taliban remnants and al-Qaeda.
Hey guys, welcome to Reality Check. I'm Huang Jiyuan. This is not a perfect analogy, but think about this. If you rent a house, the landlord expects you to return it back in roughly the same shape. A year ago, America left Afghanistan to the Afghans with the floors ripped out. According to Brown University's research, the war killed 66,000 Afghan national military and police personnel, along with more than 47,000 Afghan civilians. The United Nations is reporting that 95% of the Afghan population is not getting enough food to eat. Half the population is facing acute hunger. 3.5 million children are in need of nutrition treatment support. Close to 1 million Afghans lost their jobs since the Americans left. Half the population is living on less than $1.9 per day. Inflation is at more than 15%. Basic household goods are seeing 50% inflation rate. The country's GDP is expected to fall by up to 30%. When the war in Afghanistan started, then President Bush was very clear: achieving long-term victory by promoting democracy. Biden said, no, we were simply there to fight. America comes first. In early 2022, he issued an executive order to freeze the $7 billion Afghan central bank's asset in the United States and sought to split it, half going to compensation for 9/11 victims' families and half going to the Afghans. Then after the killing of al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri in Kabul, the Biden administration announced it will not release the $3.5 billion aid, citing concerns that the money could flow to the terrorist group.
38 million Afghan people should not be punished because a 71-year-old figurehead of al-Qaeda was living in Kabul. This money belongs to the Afghan people. And the U.S. for 365 days has been holding their money in a New York vault, that this humanitarian crisis can only be solved by reinvigorating the economy and returning the Afghans' money to their central bank.
نمیره پولی که قید کرده امریکا قید کرده نمیره که آزاد بسازه نمی سر زندگی مردم بسیار یک تاثیرات مثبت میاره.
متحده را باید قناعت بده که پول مردم عام است، این پول ملت است، این پول تاجر است. تمام تاجر، تمام سیستم تجارت افغانستان را با همین پول که اینا بلاک کردن و یا ایرا فریز کردن اقتصاد مردم که ضربه دیده، از این درک همین پول است.
For decades, the United States has been the sponsor of the regime in Afghanistan. At one point, the United States and other donors funded 90% of Afghanistan's public expenditure. But America's nation-building failed. The regime fell apart the moment the US backed away. The Taliban returning to power has snapped the United States into a defensive mode, concerned with the Taliban authorities' security policies and ideological leanings. And Americans pay less attention to Afghanistan now. The national interest made an interesting discovery. The al-Qaeda leader al-Zawahiri's death, a very important and relevant Afghan news to the Americans, was off the top of New York Times website by noon that day. Americans are putting their own interests and their own political conflicts with the Taliban above the Afghan people. The Afghan people that America had courted for decades are now relegated to the second fiddle. The Afghan people had paid a heavy price for decades of war. Now they have to deal with a United States that is less empathetic, more calculated, and willing to use any means to achieve its goals regardless of the consequences to the Afghans. The war has ended, but the smokes continue to rise.